Uh, Pardon me if my speaker volume is a little low. I really apologize for that, and I'll make sure I try to work on it. So, welcome to the power of Shakti, wherein we shine a light on the unique challenges South Asian survivors of domestic abuse face and the powerful voices working to break these barriers. I'm your host, Pooja Oberai, and today we have an incredible guest whose work is transforming lives. So let's welcome Lalitha Alladi. Lalitha is the president of Shakthi US, a non-profit based in Central Florida that provides crucial support to South Indian Asian survivors of domestic violence. Through Shakthi US, she has been a fierce advocate, helping individuals navigate the complex legal, cultural, and emotional challenges that often prevent them from seeking help. But her impact doesn't stop here. Lalitha is also the managing attorney at Alladi Law, an immigration law firm based in Georgia, assisting clients across the US and beyond. With a Bachelor of Science from the University of Florida and a Juris Doctorate from Stetson University College of Law, she began her career as a prosecutor in Clearwater, Florida. Later, providing in-house legal guidance for Siemens Corporation, where she helped multinational executives navigate immigration policies. Beyond her work in law and advocacy, Lalitha has been a strong leader in the South Asian legal community. She has served as the president of the South Asian Bar Association, that is SABA, in both Florida and Georgia, and currently serves as the vice president of the professional development for SABA North America. In today's episode, we'll discuss the additional barriers South Asian survivors face when seeking help from the immigration concerns, to cultural stigma and how these organizations like Shakti are working to change the narrative. Lalitha, welcome to the power of Shakti. We are so honored to have you with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pooja, and thank you for that kind introduction. I really appreciate you having me, and by extension, really Shakti here today to talk about how as community we can all make an impact and a change in someone's life. That's what really the power of Shakti is about giving a voice to those who might not otherwise vocalize it themselves. So as you'd mentioned, here I am working for Shakti. Shakti is an organization that was founded by, and we have her with us today, Madhurima Puturi. She is an immigration attorney in Orlando, Florida. It was her thought bubble that began all of this. She said, one fine day in 2018, she said, I've been thinking about this for numerous years, and I think it's time that we began an organization to help South Asians who are survivors of domestic abuse. There is none like it yet in Florida. You might have heard of different organizations like this throughout the US, but one does not exist in Florida. So we really need to help survivors who are going through this traumatic time in their life. And it's hard enough if they are a survivor of domestic abuse, but even harder when you are an immigrant or have different cultural barriers. And when she started talking about this really got me thinking. And it helps that because we're both immigration attorneys, we have seen this in many immigrants who have faced this kind of a problem. And we'll talk about it. There's something that we've seen. It's called VAWA, and it helps survivors file for certain immigration status. But that's one of the reasons we have noticed that there are folks who need help, but they think either that help is not available or they're scared to ask for the help. One of the biggest things that we knew about, but have a more contextual experience over because of Shakti, is in talking to these survivors, recognizing that they have additional barriers. So one of the things was a language barrier, right? We know that India is fortunate to have hundreds of languages, but let's just say dialects, I should say. But the problem is that when they need to ask for assistance, and right now in Florida, the places where they want to ask for assistance, they may not be able to communicate with them. So one of the things that Shakti assists with, just as a fundamental, start, is if they're not able to communicate in English, that's okay. We will find someone who can help translate so that we can talk to them and understand their concerns. As you rightly put it, they want to be heard. They need somebody to hear about the issues that they are facing. So obviously, they need to be heard in a language that makes sense to them. And so we want to make sure that we can offer these translation services so that we can talk to them and understand their concerns and the kind of relief that they need. So that's number one out of the box. One of the reasons that Shakti was founded, because of that cultural barrier. Another thing we recognized was that they may feel that you don't understand certain cultural barriers. There are some great organizations out there that can help survivors, but they don't all have the cultural training that is necessary to understand South Asian cultures. We are unique, and even within South Asian cultures, we are varied there. We have so much diversity there itself. But to an extent, an organization that primarily focuses on South Asians will have a better understanding of different cultural norms. Okay. So take, for example, something like arranged marriage. Arranged marriage typically has a stigma, right? We all know that when we say arranged marriage, people have a different context of what that means. But we know that many of us, our parents, came through arranged marriages, and maybe even others in our own generation came through arranged marriages. And it's not because it was an arranged marriage that there's domestic violence. Domestic violence is occurring everywhere in every sector. And so we don't want that incorrect label being associated with it, that it's because of an arranged marriage that this is occurring. If anything, we have more marriages that were arranged that are working. So we want to make sure that these types of culture barriers are understood. And so Shakti wants to be there to talk to folks where these things are not going to become an issue for them. They don't have to explain themselves. Does that make sense, Pooja?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right. So some other things that we had also thought about is something that we take for granted every day when we are at home, right? The type of clothing we may be comfortable wearing, the type of food that we are eating. Why we brought that up is originally when Shakti was founded, we started thinking about whether we should have a permanent housing that's available where if people need to go through it, that it would be available to them. Now, over the years, we have talked to some of our sister organizations and we have found a better way to help survivors, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. But that was one of the things that we were thinking about. But either way, when we assist them, we want to assist them in a manner where they can be comfortable talking to us and they feel that they are in a safe space. And so that's really the kind of organization that we wanted to begin, and that's why Ms. Paturi wanted to start this right away in 2018, didn't want to wait another day. So that's how the organization began. Do you have any specific, before I say something else, do you have any other specific questions you wanted to get into?
I think most of us have the same, like most of the women, as I mentioned, are suffering from such issues, and we always blame that. It's we have somebody who has a question here. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, the other thing is that, and I know this is true of, all cultures and societies, but maybe more so in our South Asian community, what do? We tend to sweep everything under the rug, right? Already we know, those of you who know a little bit about the cycle of violence, which is like the fundamental crux behind domestic violence, is that, someone will the aggressor will do something that's either violent, and that can be verbally also. It's not just physical violence. It can be physical, it can be sexual, it can be verbal, it can be emotional. But for now, I'll just call it violence. So they commit some kind of violent act. And then because of that violent act, then immediately there is also a regret, and then there's an apology by the aggressor. And the person who's the survivor in this wants to believe that this person didn't mean it and that this will never happen again. And they will go back to, believing in that person because they want this relationship to survive. It's a natural tendency to want to believe that and have that hope. So the cycle of violence, though, if this is outside one-time occurrence and it, totally out of character, the cycle of violence, which is what we are seeing in most of these situations, is where it happens over and over again. And unfortunately, escalating when there is no intervention. And so that is our biggest fear, both for the survivor themselves and the rest of the survivor's family. There are sometimes kids involved. There's sometimes elderly involved. Right? There are others at home who are also struggling when such an incident occurs. And not just the short-term effects of what's happening at that moment. A child is crying, a parent is, then they're elderly, they're going through a physical struggle when they see this kind of stuff happening at home. Not just the short-term, but these are causing long-term effects for those family members. Those same children, when they grow up, this is the kind of household in which they grew up. This is what they have normalized and seen. And so it can do one of two things. For those children, it can either cause them to think that this is normal and this cycle of violence continues, where they believe that this is how a relationship should exist. Or sort of the opposite, they tend to shy away from relationships because they think this is what a relationship is, and this is not what I want for myself. This is what happens when you get into a relationship, right? Because that's become normalized for them. That's how they grew up. That is the surrounding in which they saw, life happening, relationships happening. So what we want to do at Shakti is to break that cycle of violence for that family, for those individuals, but also for the future. We want people to have a healthy relationship and a healthy mindset, which is one of the things you were talking about earlier, Pooja, was about that healthy mindset and the psychological effects it has on individuals. So when I spoke about how, South Asians, we tend to sweep things under the rug and we don't want to talk about the effects. It's not just the effects. We are embarrassed. We don't want anyone to know this is occurring in the house, right? We have that pride that we are doing everything right. We are that perfect South Asian family. We have no issues. Everyone's getting A+. Everybody is going to all the right schools, doing all the right community things, always smiling, always hosting the perfect parties. Husband and wife have the perfect relationship. We don't want to acknowledge that sometimes there are tensions in a family. And some tensions are okay. Everybody has them. Okay, but it's okay to go to marriage counseling. And if that's something you need, you can call Shakti and we will help you find those resources near you. If you need marriage counseling, it doesn't have to get to the point of any type of abuse, but maybe you're just facing some interpersonal, relationship issues. Now, Shakti doesn't get involved in your divorce or anything like that, but we could suggest that that if there's a counselor near you that you could talk to. Because being preventative is also important, an important measure. You are seeking help before anything gets to that point. And so we want to help put a stop to that type of cycle. So sometimes that may involve, like I said, marriage counseling, that can involve family counseling. But if this kind of violence is already happening, we still have folks who do come and ask us for counseling, and we would still provide it. We want to do only what the survivor is ready to do. We will advise them on the options that are available. If they call and tell us, we have a helpline. It's not a hotline, it's a helpline. So if you call during normal office hours, let's say, and you say, hey, I'm going through this very bad time in my life. This is what's happening at home. And I don't know what to do. That's a very typical thing because you don't know what your options are, right? So what do we do at Shakti? we say, okay, well, let's talk through it. Tell me what kind of issues you're facing. And then we say, okay, it sounds like if you're contemplating divorce or separation, we can put you in touch with a family law attorney. We find out what kind of immigration status they are on and what their spouse, if they're married, they are on, and how that's connected. If that's causing them an immigration issue, we'll say, okay, it sounds like you also need to consult with an immigration attorney. We will give you the names of a few attorneys that you can contact. If they say that I just need to get away and I never need this person to come near me again, I'm so scared for my life, we will say, okay, this is how you go about getting a restraining order. Okay, here is the local clerk of court where you need to file this, and you need to file a restraining order to protect yourself right away. Gather your documents, gather your personal documents, your passport, your driver's license, all your identification documents. That's important. If police need to be involved, call the police right away. If you have an emergency, calling us is not your first call. Calling the police will be your first call. And we will make sure that, hey, are you calling about an emergency? Because if so, the police will have to intervene first, and then we are happy to assist you because it's an emergency, right? Because they have all the technical know-how and the expertise to put a stop to whatever incident is occurring at the moment. We don't want it to escalate and get worse. But then after that, when you require services, we are there to help folks with that. Now, when we say that we assist South Asians of survivors, that does not mean we don't assist others. We take calls from anyone who needs our kind of help with being a survivor of domestic abuse. When we say that we assist South Asians, we just mean that we are more prepared to assist the South Asian community because of the reasons we talked about earlier. We want to make sure that those who are South Asian who need that kind of assistance know that there's a place where we can understand the cultural norms. Okay, so now speaking of us being able to assist anyone in our community who's going through this kind of issue, Shakti is very proud to be adding on programs each year that assist survivors. So we started off with a Driving for Independence program. And this is one that we're very proud of because we noticed, especially in the Orlando area where Shakti began, it's not easy to get around without a car. Okay, so many times, I mean, it's going to be difficult then to get on a bus and get to where you need. The public transportation doesn't make it easy in Florida, right? We're not New York City. So public transportation is not necessarily the best. So we recognize that there are some folks who are maybe new to the US who don't know how to drive in the US yet. And we don't want them to be dependent on their significant other. So we started Driving for Independence. It's a program where we provide you with a grant if you are a survivor of domestic abuse. Okay, again, you don't have to be South Asian, but if you're a survivor of domestic abuse, that is the main eligibility criteria, then we will assist you by giving you this grant, which will help you get driving lessons, will pick you up from where you are to take you to that driving lesson, and pay for the fees for the driver's license. So you just have to be willing to accept this grant if you're a survivor of domestic abuse, and Shakti will help you get that driver's license. So that one is Driving for Independence. A second program that we began is called Briefcase for Survivors. And so as you can imagine, we're talking about lawyers here, right? We know that a lot of people who are survivors need assistance from attorneys. As attorneys, we are very well aware of it. And we know that attorneys are not cheap. And not everyone can afford to, not every law firm can afford to do pro bono work. Their heart is in the right place. They want to assist. They know that you need help, but they're also running a business and they can't do everything pro bono. So Shakti began a Briefcase for Survivors program where, again, we have grants available to those who are survivors of domestic abuse who need legal assistance. So that can be in any number of areas. It can be for a family law attorney if they need a separation, divorce, they're going through custody issues, they need a restraining order, any of these kinds of things, a family law attorney could help. And so we may be able to provide a grant for that. If they're going through issues with immigration, we understand that they're worried that if they're a dependent on their spouse's visa, for example, they may be on an H-4 visa, that they may need assistance. Or maybe they're in the middle of filing for a green card and they're about to get a green card as a dependent. And they're saying, I just have to hold on for another year or so I can at least get my green card. And I'm going to stick it out through all of this abuse. We don't want them to have to do that. So we know that they may need immigration help. So again, the Briefcase for Survivors program can help them with that. And you'll see that in the chat, our founder has put in that you can go to our website to find out about all these programs. That's www.shaktius.org. So please do visit and check us out. If you know someone who needs their help or you need our assistance, you can apply for the programs there. The third program that we just made available, and all of this is due to our sponsors, which I will talk about in a moment. But the third program that we just made available to our community is our housing program. So a few moments ago, I was telling you that we were really trying to figure out ways in which to help survivors. Do we need a physical house where people can stay for a few days or weeks, or should we think about something else? And we really talked to our sister organizations, and we found that the best way to actually help these survivors would be to help them get on their own feet almost in a faster way, meaning they may just need to leave that scenario for a week or two so that they can prepare and come up with a plan, okay? Or they may need saying that, hey, I can come and I'm already in a place where I'm renting and now I've been on my own for 2 months. I've been doing XYZ for myself to survive the situation after I left my spouse or my significant other. But this month I may not be able to make my rent, or I may not be able to make the utilities. Well, they can apply for this grant with us and we will be happy to assist them. And so we have grants that we can give up to a certain amount that can really tide them over when they're going through some of the toughest times. So this is the housing program. And the reason we say that we think that this was better is it gives a lot more flexibility for folks who are having different kind of housing issues. So it's not just say like, well, I'm sorry, all you can do is you can either stay here or we've got nothing else. Instead, we can help in different ways related to housing and also help them still be independent. And the last thing I want to say, because I know we want to take some questions too, is that in addition to helping put a stop to domestic violence, which is one of our main parts of our mission, is we also want to empower folks from the get-go. So we have various empowerment sessions. And so by empowerment sessions, I'm talking about ways in which people can be independent on their own. Sometimes we provide empowerment sessions. They're usually virtual on financial independence. Sometimes it's about just taking care of your own health, okay? And then as you talked about, mental stability. We want people to have mental peace. So we might have a psychologist come and speak with us. So there are different ways in the way that Shakti wants to empower folks. So I really urge all of you to follow us on Shakti US page, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, because we are constantly putting out there the programs that we have and the empowerment sessions that we're hosting, and all of that is free. So anyone is free to join us and learn about it. Now, I will also plug in that we have our walk. Shakti is doing a picnic and a walk this month in Orlando at Fort Mellon Park. And I'm going to give you the date right here. It is on March 2nd. Please go on to our Shakti website, which is again, www.shaktius.org, or go to our Facebook page and you can register there to join us for this free picnic and walk so that we can stand up against domestic violence. So with that, Pooja, I'm going to turn it back to you in case our viewers have any questions.
Thank you so much. It was really empowering. And I mean, what really, took me off was the amazing programs which you all are doing, and you all are going out of the way in helping people. And I think that very, very few people, are passionate about doing, like offering the best services. And these are very, very sensitive topics, I feel, and very sensitive area where it's very hard to, get somebody to come up and speak their problems. But the way y'all are
Yeah.
making things comfortable and, soothing for them, that they can come and they can talk to you. And it's a very, very, I mean, really hats off your efforts and hats off to Shakti. And it's amazing. I mean, it's really enlightening to hear so much that y'all are doing. And we keep this session open for question answers. So if anybody would like to have ask Lalita any question or any topic you would like to discuss upon.
Well, I'm first of all very, what should I say? We have several people who are assisting us through this mission itself, right? We've got, as I mentioned, Madhurima Paturi, who's our founder and past president, and we have Karuna Singhvi, who's our current vice president. And with folks like Arvinder helping us really bring this cause, shedding light and being able to talk to you about it, I really appreciate that connection that we are making in our community to have a space to talk about this, because the more folks we talk to about this, I don't want to say we're not normalizing domestic violence. We're normalizing the discussion so that we can talk about it if the problem exists.
Yes, definitely.
Do we have a question? I see that somebody just joined, but I don't know if okay, I mean,
Hello, Lalita. This is Kranti.
yes, Kranti.
I'm in Tampa,
Yes.
so it's a great pleasure to listen to you. And I just want to understand, like, when you interact with these clients of yours,
Yes.
do you provide them with psychological needs and benefits? And also, I'm also asking from a yoga perspective because I'm a yoga therapist.
Okay.
And I've been working with trauma and anxiety, and then I was just trying to reach out to such groups and people
Yes.
where they can do some basic one-on-one sessions, improve their, the baseline, like
Right.
understanding the deep trauma,
Right.
because I don't think it's easy.
Yeah.
So, is there
Absolutely.
any, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah. No, so one of the things we were talking about a little earlier is that it is definitely the cycle of violence causes a lot of mental trauma to those, the survivor themselves and the family that's around them. And so we were just saying that what we try to do is to provide you with the resources by finding the people who are near you, right? So like, if suppose you said, hey, I'm in Tampa, I'm trying to get some help for a friend who's going through this issue, and we're looking for the right type of therapy. Then what
Mm-hmm.
we would say is we would try to find a few therapists in that region and give you
Mm-hmm.
their contact information, so that to say, hey, they deal with specifically with domestic abuse, and they would be able to assist you. And so that might be either paid counselors, or it could also be group therapy sessions for survivors who are in that area, right? That you
Yeah,
can just go to some of these meetings and talk to others who are going through similar conversations. And
yeah.
that itself is so therapeutic.
Yeah, that's nice. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And actually, I've been working with two women who've been
Mhm.
going through such situations, and now, they're a little more settled, but still they
Yes.
have a lot of things. Like if like I do teach yoga and help them with, calming the mind and, all the tips which we follow.
Okay.
So it would be nice to connect with you guys, and
That would
then
be great.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
do provide free sessions because if they come from these sources,
Okay.
I have another source which I work with. So when they say like we are coming from so and so source, I do give a free session for them, and then I do
Okay.
help them with a lot of other things, like many other things which yoga can
Wonderful.
actually provide. Yeah.
Then if I may request, then I've just dropped our email in
Yeah,
the
I see
chat.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, please do. If you can send us an email and
yeah,
just
yeah,
recap on what you said and how you'd be able to provide assistance or connections,
correct.
we have an ongoing list of those who want to help us in this manner. And we're
Yeah.
so happy to have you as a resource, because that's a valuable resource for us to have.
Correct, correct. So
Thank
one
you.
of the challenge I face is because they come from a critical home home front
Mhm.
difficulties. They
Yes,
cannot log in into Zoom. They cannot come out. They cannot meet
right,
person.
correct.
Have you got any ideas where these things can be addressed? Because I face
Yeah,
that challenge myself. Like, how do I reach out to these people
right.
who are
So,
not easily available to me, but they need
absolutely.
help?
Yeah. So, I mean, that is one of the issues. And before I go further, Pooja, are we okay on time?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, please.
about to text you. We just have just 2 minutes more, so
Okay.
we
So I will just answer this question real quickly. Pooja, I'm sorry, Kranti, one of the things
Yeah.
that we do, the very first thing we do on the call after we make sure it's not an emergency, they're in a safe location, is we find out, is it safe to call you back at this number? If
Okay.
not, where should we be reaching out to you? Is it by an email address that only you have access to? We don't want your aggressor to have access to
Exactly.
his email, right?
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
one of the first questions that we ask to make sure that we're not getting them into a worse situation.
It's
Right? So
absolutely.
it is important to say when is a good time of day to contact you, because
Mm.
sometimes they might say, hey, they're at work, and so best times to reach me is these times. So
Yeah.
we will note
Yeah.
that down and only contact them in a manner that they have okayed. And that's very important in this situation. So we don't
Yeah.
make the situation worse for them.
Oh, yeah. 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 That's helpful actually,
Yeah.
because I do contact in the work hours
Yes.
or
Right. To
sometimes
find out
out
when
of
is the
the.
best time. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'll keep in touch. I have your
thank
email,
you so
so
much.
I'll keep in touch
Yeah.
because I would definitely like to reach
Yeah.
out and then have a group of people who face similar situations, and then it's more
Yeah.
empowering when everyone
Okay.
comes together.
Thank you. And thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Pooja, for inviting us at Shakti to
Thank
join you
you.
today.
Thank you. I'm putting down my number if anybody would like to, get in touch with us. And if we would like to have another session from Shakti, that would be really nice. So I will quickly put it on the chat section, and you're free to pin us with questions. We can connect with everyone, and we'll be having such more podcast schedule. But from Shakti, if anyone, if Lalita, if you're okay, we can have another round with some good similar topics.
Absolutely. Always
It
happy.
would be really, wonderful to have you up. So I'll just put down my number here, and y'all can please feel free to pin us. Yeah. So thank you so much, Lalita, for having us. Anyone would have any question? We have a last 1 minute. So
Oh, you
anybody,
do.
yeah.